With the announcement of the Night Reign spin-off, the story of Elden Ring is over. They have confirmed that it will have nothing to do with the established story and lore of Elden Ring, so after the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, that is all the information we will ever get. But there still lingers so many unanswered questions about Marika. Why did she shatter the Elden Ring? Why does she have another self, Radagon, and what even is he? Were they two people at one point that came together, or was he just always a part of her? Since author of A Song of Ice and Fire, George R.R. Martin, wrote the lore for Elden Ring, including up until the shattering of the Elden Ring, I looked there for insights. And then I found them, Cersei and Jaime. I haven't seen anyone talk about this before, but Marika and Radagon are the high fantasy version of Cersei and Jaime, and understanding them answers most of the unanswered questions about Marika and Radagon. Cersei and Jaime are identical twins but have a secret love affair. As Cersei tells Ned, Jaime and I are more than brother and sister, we are one person in two bodies. And they are like the low fantasy version of Marika and Radagon. Cersei is the brains with all of her schemes that may or may not work out, and Jaime is the brawn that goes along with it most of the time. Just like how Marika is the divine and Radagon is the more human counterpart. Cersei's motivations throughout the series stays consistent. She wants to be on the throne with her other half, Jaime, at her side, and will do anything to get there, even if it means blowing up part of her own kingdom. It's similar to Marika's story. She attained godhood with some egregious sin and went on to conquer the lands between with genocide. And a unique thing about Cersei is that she seems to be envious of men. In the show, we get some hints about this. But in A Feast for Crows, she tells us, when Tywin Lannister spoke, men obeyed. When Cersei spoke, they felt free to counsel her, contradict her, even refuse her. And her conclusion as to why this is happening, it is all because I am a woman. While Cersei is proud of the fact that she is a beautiful woman and will use that to manipulate people, men hold the power in Westeros. And she blames all of her problems on being a woman, and she's not entirely wrong. Westeros is a patriarchal society, and her main purpose was to get into a strategic marriage and birth heirs. But it's all very black and white thinking. It's all just about who she sees as having power and who doesn't. She thinks Tywin holds such influence just because he is a man, and she doesn't because she is a woman. But in thinking this way, she avoids doing any real self-reflection to get better at influencing, and she doesn't really understand the nuances of politics, alliances, or long-term consequences. And it's not entirely her fault because she wasn't taught any of this, but it is her problem that holds her back in life. We can also learn from the books how insecure she really is. Perhaps her big ego is just a veil to hide it. Her father's eyes had been unsettling, pale green, almost luminous, flecked with gold. His eyes could see inside you, could see how weak and worthless and ugly you were down deep. When he looked at you, you knew. The reason Cersei craves more and more power is because she thinks it will make that worthless feeling go away, but that is not always the case. But Cersei has the unique experience of having an identical twin, so she actually gets to see what her life could have been like if she were a man. Through Jaime. Jaime gets more of Tywin's attention. He gets to learn about politics, gets to learn how to use a sword, and has more respect overall. Therefore, if she were not born a woman, in her mind, she would be perfect. In her perfect world, she would have been born a man. In her perfect world, she would have been Jaime. In her mind, since she is perfect except that she is a woman, and that Jaime is the male version of her, Jaime is therefore a perfect person. And understanding this about Cersei will help answer one of Marika's biggest mysteries. Why does Radagon exist, and how did he come to be? The answer is that Marika created this aspect of herself because Radagon is the person she wants to be. I've discussed this at length with my friend annekkipu, and this is her take on it.
Okay, Silver, so you're saying that Marika is inspired by Cersei, while Jaime shares similarities with Radagon, Empyreans getting vessel beasts like the Stark kids and their dire wolves. Bran and the Elbenorgs, the dragon dynasty that once ruled over the lands between. Arya and Syrio Forel and their water dancing being an analogy for Melania and her own teacher. Sansa and the Hound, mirroring Princess Rani and Blythe. I think you're onto something here, but where's my man Tyrion?
I've a tender spot in my heart for cripples, bastards, and broken things.
So this entire time, the eternal childhood meant... As much as I agree with you, Silver Mooney, on the inspirations for the characters, I have to say that in my correct opinion, it is Radagon who wanted to become Marika. You see, Marika only became aware of Radagon after he became a prominent champion during the Liurnian Wars. At the time, Godfrey was the Elden Lord, as Marika needed protection and help in conquering the territories and punishing those who did not swear allegiance to the Queen. It is only after she discarded the Warrior Lord that Marika recognizes Radagon's achievements, as now she needs a new lord, the one who would create a strict control system for the lands between inner politics. Radagon, however, was surely aware of Marika, the eternal god of the realm he inhabited, and in his pursuit of the absolute knowledge and power, he goes as far as becoming her, becoming the Elden God. But I'm so ready to hear Silver Mooney's full theory.
Well, annekkipu, Marika was aware of Radagon long before the Liurnian Wars. There's evidence he was around when they slaughtered the fire giants, but we'll get to that. But these stories are ultimately about power and what people do with it, and what does Marika do with her power? To start, to create the Golden Order, she removed the rune of death from the Elden Ring. She created a deathless world.
My mother had just died, you see. I didn't really understand the concept of death, the finality of it. I thought that if I prayed very, very hard, the gods would return my mother to me. I was 4.
Then she gave herself the ability to become a man.
I should have been born a man. I'd rather face 1,000 swords than be shut up inside with this flock of frightened hens.
And then she went on to begin conquering the lands between with a genocide of the fire giants, started other wars after that, and maintained her reign with violence.
I choose violence.
If there was an alternate universe in Game of Thrones that was high fantasy and Cersei had all the power in the world, these are the things she would do. But why does Marika do them? Even though they take a different road to get there, Marika and Radagon wind up at the same destination as Cersei and Jaime. Let's start with Marika's origin story. She was a shaman who lived in a village that was destroyed by the horn scent. And I won't minimize the trauma and absolute horror she suffered at the hands of the horn scent, and I won't go into too many details because we all know by now what happened. Just by looking at the scenes, all the butchers are men, all the victims who were mutilated and stuffed into jars were women. If you read between the lines, it doesn't take much to figure out what else probably happened to the shaman. It's very possible that Marika was also a victim of SA just like Cersei. And the sheer body horror the shaman suffered most likely caused Marika to not want to be in her own body anymore. And even still, Marika couldn't protect the people of her village. Every single one was mutilated and or died. She probably lives with shame and guilt over being the last survivor who could not protect them and wishes that she could have. And then the seduction and betrayal. While we don't know exactly what happened at the Gate of Divinity, Marika did something to cause all of these corpses to be here. And she is the only survivor in the shot. So I assume she stole their life essence to become a god. This is most likely her plucking the rune of death in action. And something I do want to point out, it is Marika in the shot becoming a god. Radagon is nowhere to be found. Which is why I think she created this aspect of herself after she became a god. But this is also why she created Radagon. Her trauma from the Bonnie Butchers, who were all men, left her with an impression that men have the power to do what they want, and a man was never going to overpower her again. Like Cersei, Marika is not satisfied. She needs more power. Perhaps her trauma also makes her feel just as worthless inside as Cersei felt. Perhaps she thought that the power would fix everything. So she went on to conquer the lands between, which involved slaying the fire giants, which is when we know the first instance of Radagon showing up is. We can surmise this from the giant's red braid. Every giant is red of hair, and Radagon was said to have despised his own red locks. Perhaps that was a curse of their kind. So does this mean Radagon is part giant? No, Radagon is Marika. I've gone into the curses of Marika's children in another video, and the too long didn't watch version is that all of the curses her children are born with are attributable to one of her sins. For example, the Omen Curse is attributed to Marika's genocide of the Horn Scent, and Mesmer's Abyssal Serpent is due to her sins at the Gate of Divinity. This is the cost that Marika bears in her pursuit of power. Her children and Radagon are cursed because of her sins. This is another parallel to Cersei because as she struggles to gain power, 2 of her children are murdered. And the moment she gets rid of all of her enemies standing in the way of her throne, her last son unalives himself. But even though her dynasty is gone, Cersei still wants to eviscerate her enemies. She craves power for power's sake.
I understand whoever wins could launch a dynasty that lasts 1,000 years.
A dynasty for whom? Our children are dead. We're the last of us.
A dynasty for us, then.
I think this is what happened to Marika as well. Once she was on the quest for power, she just couldn't stop. She went to war with the giants, the dragons, the Carrions, and maintained her oppressive golden order with violence. But back to Radagon, yes, his red hair is a curse and it is due to the genocide of the fire giants. While Marika was conquering the lands between, it wasn't only necessary that she had the help of a strong man in Godfrey, but that she herself was also a strong man. As Radagon, she probably felt even more powerful and untouchable. While before her village was conquered by men, now she was the man doing the conquering. In addition to that, I think being a man gives her the added comfort that she can protect her family this time, since she couldn't protect her shaman village. But Marika couldn't protect her family from herself. She had 2 Omen children that she banished to the sewers and 1 golden child that she theoretically liked. At some point, she also had Mesmer and Melina, who are most likely Radagon's children. Melina was hidden away to do some dirty work for Marika, and Mesmer was sent to the Shadow Realm to genocide the Horn Scent, and then she locked him away there. What followed was an attempt to conquer Liurnia from the Carians, who put up a fight. Out of nowhere, Marika's champion Radagon emerged to sweep Rennala off her feet and end the war with a marriage between the 2. Radagon is Marika's other self, really just how Cersei sees Jaime, but while Cersei wants to be a man, Marika actually can be. But they don't always want the same things, and Jaime's motivations are a bit harder to figure out than Cersei's. You find out in the books that he held knighthood in a very high regard but became disillusioned with it. He even deploys a tactic called going away inside to deal with the trauma of the things he witnessed as a knight, so basically disassociating. Marika uses Radagon to not only disassociate on the inside but also on the outside, and she's able to live an entire different life as someone else to try to forget who she is. Because Radagon's people weren't brutalized by the Horn Scent, Radagon didn't commit some heinous sin to become a god. Radagon did, however, genocide the giants, and he will be reminded of that. But he didn't banish his own sons to the sewers, didn't go back and genocide the rest of the Horn Scent, and didn't lock his other son away there. He didn't plan to sacrifice his daughter to burn the Erd Tree. That was Marika. Radagon can have a clean slate. And this is why it's through Radagon that Marika interacts with the newer children, not just the ones with Rennala, but also Mikola and Melania. But what are Radagon's own motivations? It appears he is trying to hold the Golden Order together while Marika is trying to tear it down. One of the Golden Order incantations is the Law of Regression, which you use to figure out that Radagon is Marika. The law states that all things yearn to eternally converge, which means to meet or come together. So that ends up being the theme of both Marika and Radagon's and Cersei and Jaime's relationship. Marika and Cersei are pushing their lives forward, and Radagon and Jaime are pulling it back. But Jaime doesn't really know what he wants. For most of the series, it seems like he would be perfectly fine if everything stayed the same. If he could be the king's guard while secretly being with Cersei, he would be completely fine with that. However, Radagon and Jaime were not this rigid all of the time. Jaime, at a point in the series, looks like he's on a path to redemption, that he has changed from an incestuous, careless narcissist to someone that has honor. And he chooses to go to Winterfell at the end to help them battle the White Walkers, and then he starts a romance with Brienne, who is the complete opposite of Cersei. But it's not a redemption arc, it is a circle, because Jaime decides this new life is not for him and he goes back to Cersei. In the books, Jaime struggles with feelings of guilt more so than in the show. He feels guilty over what he stood by and witnessed when he was a knight serving Aerys Targaryen. He's guilty about throwing Bran out of a window. He resorts to going away inside to remove himself from these feelings. He is even haunted by Ned Stark's judging face in his dreams. He sees Ned Stark as the honorable man he will never be. So at the time, this scene seemed out of nowhere. But what I think has happened is that Jaime is crushed under the guilt of everything he's done and feels that by staying and living this life that he is living a lie, and that his fate is to come back together with Cersei. We can see this happening with Radagon as well. During the Liurnian Wars, he stopped fighting the Carians and married Rhaenyra instead. And during his time there, he had 3 children with Rhaenyra, Rhaenys, Radon, and Rykard, who, unlike Marika's children, were born fine and healthy. He also started to learn sorceries in addition to incantations. But Marika ended up sending away Godfrey and ended up calling Radagon back to become her king consort. I think most people think Marika forced Radagon to do this. I think this is one of the times they were in agreement, because we see what happens when Marika and Radagon are not agreeing on something. So Radagon found himself living this whole other life with Rhaenyra, the life that him and Marika probably always wanted. I think the Carians are very Stark-coded, and the Carian Manor is a spitting image of Winterfell. In a way, Radagon was living the life of Ned Stark. He stopped the war with Liurnia not through battle but through diplomacy, and has been living an honorable life. But it wasn't real, because he's not just Radagon, he's also Marika. As much as they want to forget Marika's past, they can't. Radagon left Rhaenyra not because he never cared, but because he's suffocating under the weight of guilt. He even left behind his wolf and his great rune to show that he cared. His character also displays themes of guilt through the imagery of thorns. Radagon's scar seal looks like the thorns he uses to enclose him and Marika inside the Erdtree, and his sword seal states, "Solemn duty weighs upon the one beholden, not unlike a gnawing curse from which there is no deliverance." The thorn sorceries themselves also have themes of guilt. The guilty, their eyes gouged by thorns, lived in eternal darkness. Radagon's guilt is not just from genociding the giants, which is why he is cursed with red hair. He has the guilt of everything Marika's done, because he is Marika. If you look at Radagon's Golden Order greatsword, it says, "Forged by King Consort Radagon to proudly symbolize the tenets of the Golden Order. Telltale signs betray that this was once the greatsword bequeathed to him by his first wife, Rhaenyra." The sword probably looked like Rhaenys Darkmoon greatsword that she will give you, but it's been completely Golden Ordified. It symbolizes that he believes his fate is to be with Marika in the Golden Order, because that is who he truly is. It is his return to form. I think this is actually a callback to Robb Stark's Valyrian Steel greatsword. After the Red Wedding, Tywin steals it and turns it into 2 swords, but that's just my crazy speculation. One last thing about Radagon I want to mention is that, like Jaime, he broke his vow. His vow was to Rhaenyra, and this is what the Turtle Pope says about it.
"You would do well to remember, severing a vow, strongest of bonds, has consequences ever more dire."
And Jaime is literally known as the Oathbreaker in Westeros, since he swore a vow to protect King Aerys but stabbed him in the back instead. So Marika and Radagon get to be with themselves again. But if you thought the story had a happy ending, then you haven't been paying attention. Marika got everything she wanted. She got to create a deathless world, got to be the person she always wanted to be, and got to be on the throne with her other half at her side. But the perfect Golden Order's age of abundance soon turned to stagnancy, rot, and decay. Marika wants out, and she wants the Age of Stars. If this is a shock to you, her grace points towards completing Ronnie's quest to get that ending, and I also have a whole video about it as well. But Radagon wants to maintain the Golden Order as is, and this conflict is one they cannot reconcile. But Radagon is Marika, therefore the conflict between the two is her internal conflict. She wants to maintain her Golden Order and believe in it, but at the same time she knows deep down that it's not working anymore. It's the most human thing about her. But now, what was Marika's biggest comfort and vice in life in Radagon is now her biggest problem. Unable to either move or stay where they are, Marika does the unthinkable and shatters the Elden Ring, and Radagon punishes her for it and locks themselves away in their crumbling empire to finally die. But really, it is Marika punishing herself for it. The scene echoes back to how Cersei and Jaime died under the literal weight of their crumbling empire. The lands between is locked in a permanent stasis because Marika is so conflicted, and that's why she needs you to decide for her. And one more thing, I haven't talked about the echoes of Marika in this video, but I think this is the most important one and one that sums up her character the best.
Make of thyselves that which ye desire, be it a lord, be it a god. But should ye fail to become aught at all, ye will be forsaken, amounting only to sacrifices.
Which is a longer way of saying,
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win, or you die. There is no middle ground.
thanks for watching. Please give me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and watch Annekkipu's video next. It's linked down below. Thanks!